With respect for Aboriginal cultural protocols, Western Sydney University Library acknowledges the traditional custodians of the unceded lands and waterways on which our libraries are located and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The university works across many different lands, and we are currently on the lands of the Decadal people of the Darug Nation. We celebrate the knowledge and living cultures of Indigenous Australians and acknowledge their important contribution to teaching, learning and research. We acknowledge that the activities currently delivered across our campuses are a continuation of teaching and learning that has occurred on these lands for tens of thousands of years. We also pay our respect to any First Nations people in the meeting. In this spirit, we welcome any guests to the meeting. Hello and welcome to the next event in the Public Thought Leadership Series hosted by the Library. Western Sydney University was placed first in the world in the 2022 and 2023 Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, the only global performance measure that assesses universities against United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The event series aims to promote and celebrate this #1 ranking, complementing work being undertaken across the university as part of its sustainability and resilience decadal strategy. I will now hand over to my colleague Badra Chandran to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon and welcome. It's an honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Leo Robba, who will be enlightening us with insights on the groundbreaking Painted River project. Dr. Robba, a respected artist and a committed researcher, has diligently worked towards leading significant cultural change. His research investigates into the profound impact of design on human health, wellness, and our symbiotic relationship with the Earth's natural systems. Holding a PhD focused on the tradition of the artist's garden and its manifestation as a cultural expression of human interaction, Dr. Robba inspires an insightful comprehension of our mutual influences with the environments we inhabit. Prior to his successful academic pursuits, Dr. Robba embarked on an extensive journey in the fields of graphic design and visual journalism, where his talent found expression in reputed publications such as the Sydney Morning Herald, the Canberra Times, and the Bulletin. Beyond his academic and research endeavours, Dr. Robba remains an active contributor to the arts, boasting an impressive portfolio of over 35 solo exhibitions and participation in more than 250 group exhibitions. Dr. Robba's approach, which resonates with Daniel Christian Wall's principles of holistic systems design and regenerative cultures, yields art that articulates complex concepts and fosters community connections. Today, we eagerly anticipate hearing from Dr. Robba about the Painted River project. This initiative underlines the crucial need to conserve and enhance our river and water catchments in Australia. It takes an innovative approach, harnessing the power of art to engage the community in visualizing a healthier future for our rivers. It emphasizes the key role that water systems play in the establishment of thriving cities and promoting human well-being. Let us welcome Dr. Leo Robba, who will be delivering the 12th presentation in our series of thought leadership events. Thank you all for your presence and attention. Over to you.
Thanks, Badra, and thanks, Emma. I'd like to start by thanking the library for the opportunity to speak here today about the Painted River project. I think it's a great opportunity to talk to an audience that maybe doesn't hear me normally, and because most of the time I'm talking to my students about this project and to diverse community members. So before I start, I'd like to also acknowledge the Darug people on the lands in which this presentation is coming from, and also their elders past and present. And I'd also like to acknowledge the many Aboriginal people that I've worked with, and in particular the Gundungurra people and the Gamilaroi people from the Moree district. So I'd like to thank them for their mentorship and friendship and the work that we have done together. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about, so this is an art, science and eco-social design project. And that's how it's often promoted. But in essence, the Painted River project is a community awareness raising project. And it is really a communications project with the media and the way we communicate at the centre of it. I'd like to start and talk a little bit about something that I don't often talk about, which is my own painting. In terms of when I'm talking about the Painted River project, I'm generally talking about it as art, science and communication and the systems in which it works and the partnerships and connections that can be made. But I thought it might be good to, because Associate Professor Ian Wright isn't here today, the science part of the partnership, he had to front the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, around some work that he's doing around a coal mine and some leachates into the water drinking system in Orange. So he sends his apologies. So I thought I'd start with talking a little bit about my painting and how that informs my thinking around the Painted River project. And as Badger said, I'm also, I have a media background. So this is a painting that I painted at West Macdonald Ranges. And for a time during my career, I ran trips to different parts of Australia, Tasmania, South Australia's Flinders Ranges and Gammon Ranges, and West Macdonald Ranges, and to Turkey in overseas, and leading groups of artists painting on plein air, so working from life. And as you'll see, the Painted River project, that's also at the core of the way that's worked. So observations from life, from nature, and how we can connect with what we see. So this particular painting was, just outside the frame is a little tent that I was sleeping in. So I painted this over a day and a half and then took it back to the studio and finished it off. And I thought I'd include this painting, which is a water tank at a place at Grindle's Hut in the Gammon Ranges. So the Gammon Ranges, if we go to Adelaide, drive 750 kilometres straight up the middle of South Australia, you'll get to the Gammon Ranges. And John Grindle tried to farm this land, incredibly marginal land. And 2 years before he met his end, he built this water tank. And to me, it symbolised, it was kind of, pardon the pun, it was a bit of a watershed moment. It symbolised on the driest continent on earth, the lengths that non-Indigenous Australians go to farmland and to think and to not understand the country we live in. And so that was the reason I thought I'd include this. This water tank was built out of river rocks that he'd carried up studiously up to the top of the hill, and but he didn't last long. This is another picture that is, so I live in the Blue Mountains in Springwood, and the Blue Mountains, one of the projects I'm going to talk about is the Rare Upland Swamps project. And so the Blue Mountains is a very iconic location in terms of Australia, but it's also home to places like Glenbrook Lagoon. This is, and I thought I would include a picture around water. So this painting was painted a couple of years ago, and one of our colleagues from Western Sydney University, Associate Professor Ricky Spencer, has also had some really important work around Glenbrook Lagoon in the lower mountains with the Turtle Island that was built there. And Blue Mountain City Council's also been doing a lot of work around extracting the weed from the lagoon. So there's an incredible amount of really good work happening to rehabilitate this lagoon and bring it back to a more natural state. Okay, so the three projects I want to focus on today are the Johnson's Creek project in Annandale, the Moree, Mihai River and Guada Wetlands project, and also Blue Mountains Rare Upland Swamp. One of the artists that you can see here depicted is Lucy Cullerton. She's a great supporter of the project and one of the many artists that really backs my project. She lends her significant profile to help me promote the issues of water and water ecology. Okay, before I get into those specific projects, I thought it would be a good idea to have a look at the formulation of my thinking around this and how I've come to develop the Painted River project. One of the things that when I was doing my PhD at ANU in Canberra, I worked very closely with a fantastic artist and academic called John Reed. And John is a bit of a leader in the field of eco-social design. And he had a fantastic project called Engaging Visions, and also another project, the Contested Landscapes of Western Sydney. I took some of the ideas that John had done and thought about how can I take Contested Landscapes of Western Sydney and popularise it into a pop-up gallery and bring it to the city. So I received funding from Art and About, the City of Sydney, and we developed a pop-up gallery at Circular Quay that was open 24 hours a day for 9 days over, this is in 2011. When running that and seeing people's reaction and coming in and out of the space, how they responded to ideas around food security, water security, urban development, and we had a series of talks, music, and my first iteration of the Painted River project was Reimagine the Perfect City. And so this is really fed into my thinking and how I've kind of worked to design the Painted River project. One of the great things that we did, I had some really contact with a really amazing artist called Robert Guth. And Robert, we engaged Robert to put on a participatory art 48 hours of baking. So Robert has a participatory art van. He drives around different locations, and it's around baking bread with community and looking at what is a loaf of bread, the value of a loaf of bread. It's a fantastic concept. So what Robert does is he pulls up at a location, starts baking bread. So he's got his big mixer there, and he's got ovens that are all powered by, generators and things. And he asked the community to to bake loaves of bread with him, and in exchange they can take a loaf of bread away if they spend an amount of time. It's up to them how long they spend. They can also swap something that they have on them for a loaf of bread. So it might be a comb or a broken mobile phone or a pair of thongs. It's up to the person what they see as the value of a loaf of bread. Robert then photographs them all, catalogues them, and then sells them on eBay. But so it's a really interesting way of looking at the value of something. One of the things that taught me is that the need for participation to get people's attention to start thinking about how they might change and to have that conversation and to keep them engaged with you through that conversation. So people could follow what their broken mobile phone got on eBay. They could also bid on it and buy it back if they wanted to. So a really interesting idea. Okay, so I might just talk a little bit about some theory, and we won't do too much, but one of the people that has inspired me and also inspired my collaborator, long-term collaborator in the Painted River project, Professor Tony Capon, is Stephen Boyden. So Stephen is an emeritus professor. He was the director of the Fenner School at the ANU. He's 98 years of age, and I'm working with him on, I think it's about his 9th book, and which he's about to publish in a few weeks' time. Stephen's work is quite groundbreaking, and he was one of the first people to connect the idea of human activity and human health, the health of people and the health of the planet. You know, in our society, people get sick, we treat illness, and it's very disconnected from the health of the planet. So Stephen so to me, this graphic, this very simple graphic, made a huge amount of sense when I first started talking about planetary health about 10 years ago. So if you're interested, Stephen's written an amazing book, many amazing books, but one of the ones that I think is very, very important is The Biology of Civilization. And the tagline on that, understanding human culture as a force, understanding human culture as a force a force in nature, really does underpin my thinking around the need for cultural change and how I can best design the project. This graphic that Professor Tony Capon and I developed is based on Stephen's ideas. And I won't go through it in detail, but just to say that the things we do, the health of people and the health of the planet, Stephen's idea of the biosensitivity triangle has kind of feeds into how we manage ourselves to leave no one behind, and thinking about our values, our culture, our mindsets, and the things that we make decisions around, the way we design our lives, and leading to the 5 big pathways, which is how we feed the world, move the world, house the world, power the world, and care for the world. And across the bottom of that, underpinning what I believe, is one of the mantras of the Painted River Project is our future depends on the health of our natural systems and how can we better value those. This is a graphic I put together really those people who have those fridge magnets with those kind of annoying sayings. This is kind of my big fridge magnet. As you can see, I put planet, people, place and planet at the centre. And this is how I've kind of explained the Painted River Project when I'm talking to students, and how some of the things you need to think about when you're designing place-based change models. So for the Painted River Project, it's a combination of art, design and science. And if you can see that the outside of the graphic it's like a warm hug around planetary health principles and Indigenous ways of knowing. That encapsulates the whole project. And it's really about how do I communicate a shared future, shared values, shared stories, and shared perspectives, and thinking about the benefits and our commitment to each other. So that's really, this graphic is to keep me on track when I'm thinking about the project and what I need to focus on. From that, Tony Capon and I have been, over the last few years, we've been talking about, I lecture in social design at Western Sydney University. And when we're thinking about design thinking, often we're talking about human-centered design. We need to move beyond human-centered design to take in the ecological. So I'm wanting to change social design to eco-social design, to foreground the ecological. So our thinking is constantly around the ecological and the social and how one affects the other. Also, part of the project, the Painted River Project, engagement is a huge part of what I'm trying to do. Like I say, it is an art science project, but is really about awareness raising and starting a conversation how to better value the ecology and how we can make changes in our own lives to take account of that. This is the system that I'm using to talk to my students about this project. And if anyone is interested, I'm happy to share this. But it is a model for how you might come up with ideas or ideate around a social change for a particular theme or topic. So if we think about the thing, the Painted River Project for me is the thing. We could put something else in the middle of that. But it's around how do we empathise with things like ethos, related topics, value sets, and the connectors and the benefits. And then how can we formulate a project around longevity, the resources you might need, scalability, and potential partners and precedent design. So partnerships is a huge part of what I do, and you'll see clearly from the projects that I've been working on how important it is. Okay, so this is a photograph taken a week ago of the Johnsons Creek Naturalisation project undertaken by Sydney Water and in Glebe. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the project we did with Forest Lodge Public School. So that's what it looked like before when we did the project with the Forest Lodge Public School year sixes. And so what during COVID, I was looking around for something we could do for National Science Week and thinking about how young people were severely disadvantaged by the pandemic and the isolation that they felt, and some way to do something that was reaching out to them. And through someone I knew, we got in touch with Forest Lodge Public School, and as soon as the lockdown was lifted, we reached out to them and we started a process of taking them to their local waterway. I was really interested in what Sydney Water were doing around this renaturisation. It's not taking it back to what it was, but it's actually trying to reintroduce nature into urban areas. And so we had a little Zoom session online. Ian and I briefed the students about what was involved, and Ian got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and went out to Barara Creek and got some fresh creatures. And we took them and we ran a science lab and painting workshop for most of the day. And also we invited the Sydney Morning Herald to come along and take photographs of the students and see and interview the participants. And we also invited a couple of Sydney City councillors along. And you can see from the way I kind of structure things, there's always trying to find an angle to get some media attention for the work that we're doing, again, feeding into that awareness raising and building relationships that actually create energy around the project. So the students were fantastic. Actually, they, so while they were painting, they could dip into the science lab, and some of their teachers were taking them around. They were doing drawings of the local area. We introduced them to some pre-colonial history prior to the day, so that they're kind of aware of the place and the changes that had undertaken. And after this, the students had an exhibition at the school of the work that they produced. What we then did is we took photographs of all the students' work, and we also then, because of the media coverage we received, we started getting a bit of attention from the Sydney City Council, and so we decided to approach them about creating a mural based on the students' work. And there was some resistance, but with quite a bit of lobbying from different parents and the school and myself, we were able to get them to agree to do it, which was, I think at the time, it was the community groundswell from the students being involved was really heartening to see how the council then was sort of almost pushed into a corner to respond. So again, as I said, the media coverage. This is a fantastic photo that appeared in the Sydney Morning Herald of the kids, their paintings, and I'm not sure what that is in that jar, some kind of aquatic creature, but it was from the coverage and from the City Council seeing the kind of energy that was created by the students that they agreed to help. So what we did was, because we had this one big space, Sydney Water also heard about the project, as did Diona, the construction company. And so we put a bit of pressure on them and got the local member to also put a bit of pressure on them. And so together we were able to assemble the funds to produce the mural, and Sydney City Council gave us the building. So I decided to use it as a curriculum opportunity. So we took the images of the students' work, and I asked my second year students in graphic design, the professional context, to come up with a mural design based on what the year 6 students had produced. And we then had a competition, and 2 students came through with the winning award. But it was a great opportunity also for university students to kind of show a bit of mentorship for school students, and particularly during the pandemic, that idea of the social dimension, the eco-social dimension of what everyone was going through, and be able to connect. So with the funds, we hired a mural artist, and the mural artist was one of the stipulations was that he would work with the school students to produce the mural. He was quite disturbed by that idea, but we in the end, so the students actually produced the mural with him, and here's the result. So it's now I see it as a wonderful legacy for those students and their contribution to their neighbourhood, understanding the project that they're involved in. And there's a plaque now on the side of this building, sort of talking about all the different people were involved. There was, 50 or 60 or 70 people involved to try and get this to happen, and it was, a really remarkable achievement on behalf of the school. Okay, so I move on to Painted River Project Moree, and I'm going to focus a little bit also on the importance of developing long-term partnerships as part of this project. The Moree region in northern New South Wales is one of the richest farming areas in Australia. It's incredibly water dependent, but it also has it's 27% of the population of Moree is Indigenous, and some of the disadvantage there is quite acute. And so when thinking about water in this country and who owns water, who uses water, how it's used, water is a very, very contested space, and there's an incredible amount of politics involved. The aim of my project, of this project, is to start conversations, civil conversations, how to better share water and understand perspective of others. And so we've had Indigenous people painting alongside cotton farmers, and so there's been times where there's awkward conversations being had, but it is also the community is really starting to embrace the project as their own, and we're now looking at ways to develop it further in terms of with the schools and education around waterways, and working with different departments up in Moree. So we've had the Painted River Project Festival, we've had regional gallery exhibitions, we've had lots of different events there, but at the core of it, we run a field study program, art science field study program, where we take artists from outside of Moree. Everyone comes together. Last year we had over 30 artists from different parts of Australia come to Moree to work with local artists and to participate in the annual Painted River Project event, community event on the Mihai River there. It's a free event open to the public, and it's been done in partnership with BAM, the Regional Gallery, the Council, Western Sydney University and Monash University, and we're now looking to expand that even further. This is just a photo of the Art Science Day. It's a very big space, so there's, we generally get about 150 people attending the event, and it's now people are looking forward to it and starting to plan holidays. Families are starting to plan holidays around this particular time that we run it in Moree. Here's Ian. So we set up a mobile science lab with microscopes that people can take photographs of the bugs through the microscope, and it's really well supported by the young kids that come along. They're really curious and interested to see the river bugs, and it actually is one of the as they do their paintings, they're starting to think differently about the river and thinking about it as a living river, a river that's alive. And in terms of Indigenous people and caring for country, thinking about life above the ground and below the ground, above the water and below the water. So that idea of planetary health, caring for our ecology, is embedded in this, the way we're trying to run this. Okay, so this is just a photo to show you some. So what we do is also, inform the artists that participate in. So many of these artists are very well-known artists, but they're really interested in hearing about about the water ecology and being informed about the health of rivers and the health of the country as they make their work. And it's we're getting a lot more artists interested in, particularly landscape artists who make work around the topic, wanting to understand the health of the natural systems in which they're working. Part of the strategy for the Painted River project is to also keep re-engaging communities in a meaningful way. So not just go there, make work, host the events, but come back, show the work that's being made, invite people along, hold talks, symposiums, get the conversation to be deep in the community, and get the local community members and artists participating in these exhibitions. One of the things that I'm most excited about with the Moree project is we're looking, I pitched an idea to Multi-Lit, which run a literacy program and have some funding for closing the gap, to look at disadvantaged schools in New South Wales. That's really interesting that the library is the host today, and I think they'll be interested to hear about this project. So I've had a little bit to do with the Uraba paper makers and artist collective up in Boggabilla, just north of Moree. They make incredible work, and we pitched to them with Multi-Lit and the Painted River project to do a Caring for Country Indigenous-led publications, some early readers and some storybooks and lesson plans based on the Painted River project. So we're going to be working with a local school in Boggabilla, and with Indigenous kids participating in a Painted River project. We're going to get them down onto the river, see some creatures under the microscope. We're going to get them painting, thinking about how they can create stories from the river creatures that they see. And Auntie May is, and many of her, the women artists that she works with at the Uraba Paper Makers is going to create paintings based on the work that we do. This is a photo of Auntie May seeing the early readers that have been produced in the past for the first time, and she was so excited about getting involved in the project, which is really good. So again, the multiple partners in this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do to kick this along. This is just a couple of I thought I'd show a few of the artworks from the Uraba women, and as you can see, they're beautiful river-based storytelling. So what they paint with pulped paper. So they pulp up paper, cotton, and then they put it in sauce bottles. They mix it with some kind of adhesive, and then they paint with the colour from the sauce bottles onto paper, and then it's pressed. So it's embedded. So the images are embedded in the cotton-based rag. And being a cotton region and heavily water reliant, it's of country, which makes it really special. Okay, well, let's talk about Rare Upland Swamp project in the Blue Mountains. And so this was the most recent project that we did. It was co-led by David King, Uncle David King, Gundungurra traditional owner. It's also, again, with the Blue Mountain City Council, Western Sydney University, and Monash Sustainable Development Institute partnered on this, along with Western Creative. Okay, so I'll talk mostly about Gargari, the gully in Katoomba. So this is a special Aboriginal place, and David was, incredibly important part of this project, and the way he engaged with us and talked about country, talked about the work of healing this place that has been hugely damaged by It was turned into a racetrack in the 1950s. It's a designated Aboriginal place, and David's it's especially significant for David because his mother was pushed out of Katoomba in the 30s, and she grew when she was about 8 and grew up here for a time and lived there for a time. A lot of the Aboriginal people were pushed to the fringe of town and ended up living in the gully and making sort of a shanty town really, and marginalised. And so after they put in the speedway track and had finished with that, they then it was disused, and so David worked to have it when it was handed back in the year 2000. And there's a huge number of people involved in restoring this, bush care workers, and led by David and many others. So it's a very special place, and there's as an artist going to a place like this, there's a really beautiful feeling about this place, but it's also a sad place. Okay, so this is Uncle David King, and he's I think if any of you have met him, he's a most enigmatic, inspirational person, and I'd like to sort of publicly state how much a debt of gratitude to him. Okay, so here's two of the artists that were involved in the project, and you can see clearly here the speedway track. So this speedway track is cut through this incredible swamp. So there's about 7 artists involved in this: Reg Mombassa, Adrian Richards, Ewan McLeod, Lucy Cullerton, Kelsey King, Gundungurra artist, David's daughter, and Greg Hughes, Dr. Greg Hughes from Western Sydney University, and Matthew LaHood, who both made video pieces based on the work. And we had an exhibition at the Whitlam Institute. So this is where the artists' exhibition came first, and then built the momentum for the public program to come later, and to attract the media attention through the public program. Okay, so this is an example of one of Adrian Richards' ceramic pieces. So part of the Rare Upland Swamp project was to try and highlight the giant dragonfly, which is under threat, and the lura skink. So several of the artists made works around those particular themes. Here are 2 examples of Reg Mombassa's work. And as you can see on the left, you've got that cankered tree that's been things protruding from it. It's typical Reg work. He's always looking for the quirky, the unusual in the landscape. And that was drawn on site. So he produced that. The other one is an ode to the koala bear and how they're feeling about the threatened nature of these places. So studio-based work. So as I said, we had the exhibition at the Whitlam Institute, and we ran a water-sensitive urban design symposium around that, which was in partnership with Blue Mountain City Council. It was really well attended, and got to talk about issues around planning and how we better manage water in our cities and urban areas. And so I'm always looking to extend what we're thinking about in terms of the Painted River project and how it is. So this is at the so then we developed a large scale community project at the Gully with David, and this is some of the kids at the science lab looking at that. And we've also brought in some other scientists alongside Ian. So Dr. Amy Marie Gilpin from School of Science. She works on bees and pollinators and insects and flowering plants. And Kat Morrison, who's a PhD candidate looking at platypus and water health. As I said, the success of the swamp project and the energy that was created around it really is largely due to the huge media attention we were able to garner. We partnered with ABC Weekends 702 to do an outside broadcast and Simon Marnie came and hosted the broadcast from the gully live. Got to speak to the many different people that were there, and also to talk about the issues related to water health, upland swamps in the Blue Mountains. And I think that opportunity to do that, but also it was part of NAIDOC Week, and one of the most enduring memories from that day was Simon's interview with David King talking about his mother and the healing nature of, I suppose, the project to have those pasts aired, and thinking about elders, Aboriginal elders, as part of NAIDOC Week. It was just a really fantastic thing to be able to do. And it's helped build momentum for future projects. For me, one of the things that is most crucial, the project has been designed around curriculum and how I can engage my students, and to, particularly young people. The project is around eco-literacy. It's also around how can we offer a sense of hope by enabling young people to participate in something, to feel part of the solution. And I was really pleased that so many of my students came to the day there in Katoomba. Okay, so what's next? So I just thought the 4 universities have got together to create the new alliance. Western Sydney University, University of Wollongong, Newcastle University, and UNSW. And the Vice-Chancellor gave a talk at my school's Christmas party, saying that he was after ideas for people to come up with something to think about the new alliance. And that seemed to me to be a bit of a challenge. So one of the things that I came up with was 6 cities, 6 rivers. And we're now engaging with Newcastle University, who's taking the Rare Upland Swamp exhibition to Newcastle. And we're going to launch the 6 cities, 6 rivers project from there. It'll be a 5-year bioregional field study, research and engagement project. And it's really thinking about the bioregion and how those 4 universities connect together, and how we can collaborate with artists, scientists, designers, people around planning, architecture, and slightly differently, we will be pairing specific artists with specific scientists to look at certain topics. So it might be around mangroves, mangrove health. It could be around fisheries. It could be around planning and various issues to do with urban development. So I'm really excited about this project, and it's sort of scaling it up and looking to put together multiple partners to try and see what we can do. And obviously, you'll notice that many of the people that I work with, I seem to work with all the time. Once I start collaborating with someone, I try and draw them in, and I try and make it worth their while to keep collaborating. And I'm always looking for mutual benefits in terms of the collaboration, and how we can work together to better foster and value water health. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. This is, I just thought I would put this photo up. This is Timmy the platypus, who is, I suppose, the mascot for Kat Morrison's fantastic project around water health and platypus. But I just thought it really symbolised the different generations coming together, and our need to foster youth. But so I invite you all to come and paint a river with me sometime. Thank you. I'm really happy to take some questions if people would like to.
We got a comment from Katie Hayes, and she said she wanted to leave early, but she says, truly inspiring project, Leo, and thank you for the tireless efforts.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I enjoy it.
And a lot of thank yous. Good.
Thank you. I'd also like to say it's quite a surreal experience in this huge room with everyone with quite a few people online. So not being able to see people is tricky, but I really appreciate effort people made to come along and hear the talk.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to point out that we have a gallery space now in the library at Penrith.
Yes.
We're always looking for university work to be showcased. So if anything from the Painted River or photos from the Painted River you'd like to put on display, do let us know.
Yep, I'm sure I'll take you up on that.
Thank you.
There is one more chat message. Thank you for interesting and great that the local communities are involved. It would be such an inspiration for them too.
Good.
There is another question too. Such a great presentation. This is from Carmel Hamilton. She's from Camden Council.
Hi, Carmel.
Such a great presentation. How can councils get involved in the upcoming 6 Cities, 6 Rivers project?
Send me an email.
Okay, you heard that, Carmel? Please send an email to Dr. Leo Robba.
We might just have to pop his email in the chat.
Yes, and it's also on my profile page on WSU.
That's not a question. This is a bit of promotion from our side. Our next event is, I have put it in the chat. Next event is on, when is that? Sorry. 31st of August. Workforce and training issues in the disability sector by Dr. Caroline Mills. So I have put the information. I'll put the link. If you're interested to get information about other talks in this series, please let us know. Thank you.
That's right. We're sort of building up a bit of a mailing list. If you'd like to be kept up to date, just pop your email in the chat and we can add you to the event mailing list. Oh, one more.
Oh, one more. Good.
One more from Clinton Rackett. Fantastic presentation. Thank you. Are we able to have a copy of your slides? Would you do similar projects in Western Australia or have a collaborator over there?
Well, actually, funny you should say that. I have actually been talking with someone in Western Australia about trying to do something in Western Australia. I would be very keen to talk and very happy to share the slides.
We also record the series, so we can share the recording. It will be available on the library's website as well.
If Clinton can send me an email,
yes,
I'm happy to respond.
Okay, beautiful. So I think that wraps us up for the day. Thank you again, Dr. Leo. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Both online and in person.